Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of attempting to make a Space Invaders type game in Unity Playground. So the last time we created our enemies, and if I press play you can see them moving left to right. And cool, that's perfect. I'm going to leave it as is, and let's add in our main player. So I'm going to drag him in, and let's use the blue ship for that. And resize, remember to hold shift while you are resizing. I like to use the rect tool and just hold shift and drag down. That'll keep it in proportion. Okay, remember if you're holding shift. And let's eyeball this. I'm gonna move it to the middle. Cool, great. And add component. We want move with arrows. Remember to change, you can change whether you want to use WASD keys or arrow keys. I'm leaving it as arrow keys. Speed 5, that should be fine. Movement all directions, let's just make that only horizontal. And let's see, rigid body. So remember, when you add a move with arrow script, it will add in a rigid body 2D script for you as well. And I'm just going to set gravity to 0. Linear drag, let's set that to about 5, or it's going to be sliding all over the place. Let's press play and test it out. Okay, that's does not feel so great. Let's change linear drag to about 7. Okay, that feels better. Cool, great. Okay, what I'm a bit worried about is getting these to shoot bullets at the player and getting that to work, because the only shoot script that's available, I think, requires input. So let's just have a look here. So I'm just going to say object shooter. And the way this script works is you need a key to press. And there's no way to randomize that. So, I think we are going to have to make another plan for this. So I'm going to remove component on this. And let's try using a spawner for the bullets. Spaceship red. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to create an empty object here, and let's call it enemy shooter. On this, I'm going to add a spawner. Or not spawner, what is it? The object creator, I think. Object creator area. Cool, great. So this is going to simulate shooting by just spawning objects. And what's nice about this is you have a spawn interval, so we can get this to create our bullets at regular intervals. And we need a prefab to spawn, so let's create a prefab quickly. Let's go back to assets, and we want images and projectiles. So to create a prefab, remember we need to add it to our hierarchy here. That's the easiest way to do this. Let's just use this bullet over here. I'm just using the first one. And you can create a prefabs folder for yourself. Okay, look, there is a prefabs folder there already. So I'm just going to drag it here into the root. Just remember, as your projects get bigger, you want to organize your stuff better. Okay, so we've got our bullet prefab. I'm going to go back to our enemy shooter. And the idea will be to add this enemy shooter to each one of our scripts. Okay, so we will create the prefab out of this as well. But let's just test this out for now. I'm going to just leave this in the middle around here for now. And our bullet, it's in the middle of nowhere, but that's fine. What we want to do is just let's go to the Prefab Editor. So you can either double click it here in your project view, or you can click on this right arrow here in your hierarchy. That will take you to your Prefab Editor. First thing you want to do is tag this as a bullet. Now the object shooter script automatically adds this tag in for you, so we need to just make sure that we're adding this tag in automatically. So that the reason for this is some of the other scripts will look at this bullet script, especially when we're looking at the player dying. to check that, or is this even necessary? I'm actually not 100% sure if this is necessary, if it's, well, let's just leave it in for now. And I will check what the other scripts are doing and see if this is necessary. Okay, so next thing is, just see, we need us to move automatically. So let's create a move, auto move, and you can see this arrow shows you which direction is going to move automatically. So instead of you'll see X is set to 1, so we want to set it to 0, and we want Y to be 1. Oh no, -1. -1, so going downwards. So that will make sure our bullet is going downwards. So let's press play and see what it does. And you'll see our bullet went flying down. So that's great. Okay, our bullet is in the top left there. So we can remove this from the hierarchy now. Let me just think about this a bit, because we want to destroy the ship as well. So we can add a script to the ship itself or to the bullet to destroy the other object, but that's gonna create an extra script with every single bullet. So it's cheaper and more performant to add the script to our spaceship instead. So let's just remove that bullet, and what we'll do is on our main spaceship, which is spaceship blue, I'm going to rename this to player. It's easier to see. And our enemy shooter is in the middle. So what we can do now is on our enemy shooter, let's drag that bullet from our root. Remember to use it from the root of your project, because that's where your prefab is that we just created. Enemy shooter, bullet, and we'll move that in there. Spawn interval is 1. So unfortunately we cannot randomize this, so it's going to create this bullet after every second. Let's press play and you will see it's creating. Cool. And now we just need to make sure our spaceship gets destroyed. Our player gets destroyed. So for that we need condition collision. And it says we need a collider on our player, so let's add it in, collider 2D, and I'm going to create it as a box collider 2D. Let's try and add a condition collision again. And okay, so filter by tag. So what we are going to do is we're going to check for the bullet. So remember we added a tag to the bullet. So this is what we're going to use that tag for. So filter by tag, and we are going to look for the bullet tag. So this is saying, okay, only execute this script when the bullet tag is hit. Okay, and what we want to do is destroy action. And what do we want to destroy? So this script is on the player, so we want to destroy the player itself. So not object that collided, but this object, which in this case is the player. That effect, we can just click on the plus, click on assets, and search for P underscore, and we want P underscore explosion. So let's see what it does. Okay, nothing's happening. What am I missing? Object shooter. I've definitely got bullets set there, so that's great. Okay, so player. Condition collision. Filter by tag bullet, good. Gameplay actions, destroy this object, everything looks fine. I think I need to tag this as player. Let's just see. No, still not. I don't have a collider on my bullet. No, I don't. So I need to add a collider on that. Remember to edit your prefab, eh? So box collider 2D. Let's try this. Ah, great. Okay, so that's what was wrong. Okay, so great. So now what we can do is create a prefab out of this enemy shooter. So I'm going to take it and drag it down here to the bottom. I can delete this from the hierarchy, and on each of these spaceships, so we should have actually created prefabs out of all these spaceships, but that's okay. Take that as a lesson for the next time you do something similar. And make sure that the transform for each of these is set to 0. So I'm setting position to 0, 0, 0, which will set it to the position 0 relative to the parent. So it will basically set it to whatever the parent's position is if we're setting it to 0. So let's see what it does. Cool. So you see what's happening here. These ships are spinning around. The reason for that is the colliders. So we've got colliders on the bullets and on the ships. So that's what's confusing it a bit. So let's move these shooters down a bit to the bottom so that we don't have that issue. Okay, it's still kind of happening. Let's move it down a bit more. And that is so funny, but I'm not sure why that's happening anymore. But what you know, I'm just gonna freeze the rotation on all of these. So I selected all of the spaceships, and on constraints under rigid body 2D, so rigid body 2D, constraints, freeze rotation Z. Let's see if that helps at all. That looks so much better. Okay, so I can move, whoops, I can move the shooters up a bit because that's spawning the bullets now a bit too far down. Let's make it around there, see that it has no effect, and okay. Good, great. I think that is great. Okay, you see the bullets are kind of flipping around. We could make the bullet what do you call it, a trigger. So I'm going to say is trigger on my bullet. So what I did was I went back to project, double clicked on the bullet and clicked on is trigger, but I don't know if that's going to affect my explosions now. Yeah, you see that does not work, so it cannot be a trigger, or that condition collision script does not work, which is a bit unfortunate. But what we could do is on the bullet is just go to the rigid body and do the same thing, freeze rotation, and that's okay. Cool. That is good. I think it's just a bit too fast, so I double clicked on my bullet, and what I want to do is change it auto move script. It's -1. Let's make it -0.5. That does not work so well. I remember this being a problem with adjusting the speed for auto move. What we need to do is actually adjust the linear drag, so I'm going to make that maybe about 5, and in that way we can change the speed a bit. Let's make it 15. There we go. So that's changed the speed, and now you can see it's spawning too frequently. So I'm going to go back to my enemy shooter. Good thing we made a prefab out of it, so we can just double click on the prefab and spawn interval. Let's maybe make that 3 seconds now. Every 3 seconds it will now spawn. That's me moving a bit too slowly maybe. So what you're gonna have to do is just play around with it a bit. I'm gonna change drag down to 10. That did not seem to have any effect. Change to 8. 5. Okay, interesting. Because I could have sworn earlier that 5 was having no effect. Let's change that. Okay, that seems like a decent speed, I think. Another thing you can do to give the appearance of randomness is to go back to each one of your shooters and just adjust your spawn interval a bit. So I'm going to increase each one by say 0.2 seconds. So this will be 3.2 seconds. Next one, let's make it 3.4, 3.6, and last one 3.8, and let's see what that does. So it should look a lot more random now. Yep. Yes, okay, that is definitely looking a lot more random. Okay, one last thing before I wrap up this specific video. I think in the next video I'll add in the scoring system, etc. But right now let's just add in a quick win. I'll add in the background. So images, background, and BG space. Let's add in BG space. As soon as you edit in, just make sure that you change draw mode to tiled, tile mode to continuous, and let's select the rect tool, hold shift. Oh, you don't need to hold shift, I'm sorry. You can just resize it now and it will resize nicely. No, whoops, I forgot one thing. And we need to set the sorting or the order in layer. Let's change it to -1, which means that will draw first. So remember what your order in layer, what this does is it tells Unity what to draw first. Whatever's set to the lower numbers will be, so the lower numbers order in layer will be drawn first. Okay, so by default the order in layer is set to 0, so all our ships and bullets etc will have order in layer set to 0. So we're setting the background to -1, so the background will always be drawn first in our case. And great, okay, so that will already looks so much better when you add in the background. Cool, this is looking good. So we need to add in the shooting capabilities for the player, which I'll do next. Maybe think about how you would do that, and I'll leave it as a bit of a challenge for you guys to see if you can figure out how to do that, adding the shooting capabilities to the player. Otherwise, if you can't figure it out, we'll do that next. Okay, until then, enjoy.